Welcome to the Blind Apex Podcast, where amateur club racers tune in to get faster.
This episode is brought to you by Deechworks Fuel Systems. Visit deechworks.com to fuel your passion. I'm your host, Kanjan Turk, and on this episode of the Blind Apex Podcast, we're talking the Grassroots Motorsports $2,000 Challenge. Now, at the time of recording, we're maybe 3 or 4 days post the 2024 closure of that event. So I think it's the perfect time to listen to this and start planning the 2025 build. So, joining me, GRM employees themselves, Tom and Dave. Welcome to the show. David, sorry. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Hey, thanks for having us. Great to be here.
Yeah.
Tom, why don't you give everybody your background with GRM and what you do there?
Sure. So my background starts, at birth, basically. My parents founded the magazine back in the 80s. So I grew up in the business, first just tinkering in the garage, then in go-karts, then in cars. And today I'm the publisher and kind of charged with taking the company into the next generation and making sure it stays around more or less forever.
Well, I'd like to thank you and your parents because it's been at least a 24-year problem for me. So.
Perfect. That's what I love to hear.
And David, how about you?
Yeah, I've been at the magazine, 30 years now. When I came in, I was just 2 years out of college, and the magazine was 10 years old at the time. I want to say that at the time we were making 64-page issues, partially black and white with a little bit of color. And here we are today. Multiple magazines, titles, websites, social media, and all that. And I'm the editorial director, so I oversee all of our content, whether it's print or digital.
So I'll tell you, this is just another selfish podcast of mine. So I pick topics. Nobody really gives me topics. Sometimes they do, but I saw the event was going on, or was just about to close, and I reached out because back in 2000, was 2000 the first year of this challenge?
1999, actually. The first year it was $1,500, and it was in 1999, and
I think this was back before Lemons, before Champ Car, kind of before all those kind of lower buck series. And
for sure,
the idea was, nobody really thought you could go racing on a budget. So I think, David, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was never really intended to be a participant event. I mean, you guys were going to just invite some readers to offset some track rental expense, right?
Kinda. It was that. I mean, that's what it came from. Is we didn't think you could race, or people said you couldn't race for cheap. And this is, again, before Lemons, all the other stuff. It was also way before the explosion of track events. Getting on track required, a race car, a truck, trailer, all that. Mm-hmm. And we had an idea of, let's show you what people can do. And we set a budget cap at $1,500. And Tim, Tom's dad, JG, our art director, and myself, we were each given a little bit of money to build a car for $1,500. And that the original idea is the format we still use was we were going to drag race them, autocross them, and have a concourse event. Because the goal of the part of the concourse was we wanted the cars to be presentable. And we threw it out there to our readers of, hey, here's this idea we have. If anyone wants to join us, let us know. And as I recall, we were eating lunch one day. We used to, our old building, we were eating outside. We had a picnic table, and the phone rang, and it was a guy named Johnny Pruitt. And he said, hey, I saw that item. I saw that you're going to do this. I'm out here in Texas, and I want in. And we went, oh, shoot, this is real. Now we got to think this through. And a few and others came in. And, yeah, so we the first one was a little, how can I say, guerrilla, off the radar. We did have an autocross site. we didn't think we could rent a drag strip, so the plan was we would run with Test and Tune at our local drag strip near Orlando. But we brought in real concourse judges. One of them was Kirk F. White, who's no longer with us. But if you look at the Ferrari that Mark Donohue drove in 1970, I believe Mark Donohue and David Hobbs drove at Daytona, you will see Kirk F. White on the air intake. And that is the same gentleman. He was the sponsor of that car, and he happened to live near us, and he was very involved in the concourse scene, kind of helped create the modern classic car auction, which is a whole other story, but he was one of our judges, and he came and took it seriously. And we had people come from far away, including some of the regulars we normally have. Bill Catita and the crew from Maryland came down. We had people, again, from Texas. We had close to 40 people show up, and we never really expected that. And I can tell you more about it, but I'll say it was humbling. But yeah, the original idea was, let's do it, and we'll see if anyone shows up. It's kind of like you throw something out there, like, hey, I'm going to throw a little backyard barbecue. Maybe a few friends will show up, and next thing you know, like the whole football team shows up, and now you got a big thing, and it's real. And
yeah, and the first year went really well. In 2000, kind of took a year off. Everybody regrouped, decided to raise the budget to $2,000. And then the event came back in 2001, and it's been held every single year since and just kept growing.
Okay.
And once it came back, it kind of, you could say, went legit, rented a drag strip. We had a real, the final, like the first time for dinner, I think we all went to like a fish camp or something, and it was raining and gross. Not the food, but the weather.
I was there. Instead of hosting a banquet, it was basically just like, hey, me and 100 friends need a table. What? Yeah. Got away with it, though.
I mean, if you know people, it's helpful. But so yeah. I actually want to, I sort of want to deviate a little bit from what I sent you guys because it's kind of casual. Right. I wanted to touch on what the challenge encompasses. I'm pretty sure most of the people that listen to this podcast were degenerate youths, maybe into adulthood, at least young adulthood, if not even farther. But we've sort of reformed our ways. So we understand the drag racing portion and we understand the autocross portion, mostly because I hate on it a lot on this program. I understand it's a gateway drug, but it's not the end all be all to me. So, and once I went wheel to wheel, I can't even look at cones. I used to autocross. I did. And I could look at the cones and be like, okay, this is how I need to go. But once I hit the track, all that memory is gone. I don't know what happened. Something deleted it. But so can you explain what a concourse is? Is it like a supercar show?
Sure. So a concours is a formally judged car show, basically. Normally at concours events, you'll judge on originality and paint finish and body gaps and all that sort of, boring stuff. At the challenge, we present our judges with 3 categories. So innovation, execution, and presentation. And basically innovation covers, how wild is your build? Some kind of wild V8 swap Spitfire or something would get more points than a stock Camry. Execution covers, how pretty is it? Shiny paint, attention to detail, cleanliness, that sort of thing. And then presentation is, kind of how well did you tell your story to the judges? How well is it presented at the event? That sort of thing. So, we do that both to make sure we have pretty cars for the magazine and to make sure that, actually real cars show up. I mean, anybody can sawzall all the body panels off a car and make it faster, but we try to focus on something the average reader could actually use. And then it's really created kind of, we have a bunch of college teams that participate, and it's been fascinating to see them make the concours kind of their killer event, if that makes sense. They're putting all those presentation skills and those prep skills that they're learning in school into action at the challenge. And it's really cool to see them do that and do well and then go on and get real careers afterwards. So that's super exciting.
Yeah, I would reiterate that. It basically, it's the story behind the car maybe the car isn't the fastest, maybe it's not the prettiest, but it might have a really good story behind it. And this is a chance to showcase that, to make it a little bit more well-rounded. And the Concours, I will say, is also probably the most humbling part, because you do hear those stories and you realize a lot of these really cool cars don't come from, fully equipped garages. It's made by someone who in real life is like a math teacher with, if they're lucky, a one-car garage, and their buddy, who's also their teammate, lives 3 hours away. And you hear how much they kept going, how to drive back and forth. And that's when you realize, like, it's the work, it's the effort, it's the labor of love that is behind behind these cars.
Yeah. So that's actually, I was stuck on a train on the way home, DC traffic and the weird things that happen around the Washington, DC metro area slowed me down. And I was thinking, the object of this podcast is to help people get faster. Okay. To work on yourself, to work on the car, to get faster. That's the slogan. Okay. But we've covered a couple of topics that I think relate to this, and you guys are touching on it. One is track family. So I race Honda Challenge with NASA Mid-Atlantic. My track family is super strong. Okay. If your track family just was bored, this would be a great challenge for you guys to sort of change the pace for everyone. But also individually, if you are, there's a monotony to racing, when you're racing Honda Challenge or STL or whatever, there's a level of intensity that you have to have. And this seems, there's still going to be some intensity, right? You're never going to take the competition out of the person, but what you're going to do is you can change it, right? You can change the aim of that intensity. And some of us don't care about what our car looks. I do, but my race car, but just to give them sort of a distraction from the regular grind that sometimes we feel that we're in when we go racing. Dylan, I'm talking about you personally, because I know you go through that. So I think this go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up autocrossing, like, kind of like you, jumped to road racing and don't autocross nearly as much as I used to. And I'd say it's really refreshing to see teams doing really well in three disciplines, really, that I don't really put any time or energy into these days. I'll wrap my car to make it look decent, but I'm not that worried about exactly, the finer details. Drag racing, I just never got into. And autocross, again, I'll do once a year or so now. So it's really, really cool to see these teams with these so limited resources taking those events so seriously and kind of seeing what the leading edge of that looks like these days. So, I mean, a fast challenge car will out autocross, a national champion in a super street car, a class car, at least. I mean, if not, a street touring or something more aggressive. And it'll run a 9.046 second quarter mile. So, and it'll look, shiny paint, look like a new car. So, seeing what these teams are able to do is humbling, and it's really, really cool. Just like whenever I go to a show and I see land speed cars, I've never done land speed racing, probably never will, but I walk right over to see if I can learn anything, to see how the other part of our world is working and to learn stuff. So it's super cool.
So you said you don't drag race. So you're telling me you've never been at a traffic light and had somebody look at you a little sideways and you launched a little harder than you normally would have?
Well, okay. I've done some drag passes and everything, but I never got it until I have an LS swapped 350Z. It's a TT2 car now. But I took it to a test and tune. I had a friend with a Mustang that was going. I was like, oh, let's see what the Z will run. And it runs a high 12, low 13. And I finally realized that that's just barely fast enough to start making drag racing interesting. I'd always done it in Miatas and stuff, 15, 16 second cars. But as it turns out, if you go a little faster, it gets way more interesting and it starts to be a challenge. And so
there's a reason why we included drag racing. We're not, historically, we're not a drag race magazine. I used to drag race back in the day, import drag racing when it was new. But the reason we did drag racing, if let's say it's an autocross, or let's say the competition, let's say it's road racing, and I tell you my car ran a whatever XYZ at VIR, that doesn't really mean anything to anybody, to the general population. Or
It
if I have
means
a
a
car
lot
that,
to me.
but to the average person, pick a track. If you haven't been to that track, it's a very narrow, it's a narrow field. But if we said
Right.
this car runs a low 12, a lot of people know what that means. That does give a very universal benchmark. And that's where that came from. Also, it is rather a little bit easier to do, but that was where that came from. Was it just presented an easy benchmark, an easy to understand benchmark. And then the autocross came from the fact, we're primary, that's our background as well. And there's been discussion over the years, why don't you add a rallycross or top speed or road racing? And by and large, everyone's like, you know what, we like this format. It is within an easy scope, or it's a little bit easier for everyone to digest. Also, we don't have, we get some really fast cars we may not want going full speed at big racetracks, but
Right.
that's where the drag race comes from. And what you're saying about family, what's been interesting is, and I've done club racing, I've been involved in club racing going back to the, late 80s. It's intense, and I've seen tools thrown and people yelling and some dumb stuff done in the paddock. With this, which is nice, is like, yes, we have different teams, but everyone kind of realizes they're on the same team. Several years ago, we had the car that was arguably going to win. Like, you just knew it was the car that was going to win. It broke something badly. And the first person there to help was the dude who would have finished first had that car stayed broken. And we get that comes through a lot. We get it's a little bit hard to tell sometimes who's on which team, because there is so much people just going back and forth helping each other.
Well,
And it's a little bit like I'd say summer camp, but really it's like spring camp.
yeah. So to me, so I'll be honest, I've been following the challenge since probably 2001. I graduated from James Madison in 2002. That was the year we started Madison Motorsports. Maybe 3 or 4 years later, some of the alumni, to include me, decided we would, if the students, the active current students, were interested, we would fund the challenge. And so they had a meeting, they got things together, and it never gelled. But we ended up with 2 Mercors, the XR4 TIs, and a V6 Mustang. I have no idea. That's outside of my realm. But we needed it for parts. Some sort of parts were needed off that Mustang. And we were still under budget. And today, 2024, I'm like, man, 3 clapped out cars for under $2,000. I don't think I can do that right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's, cars have gotten more expensive. Truly horrible cars, though, are still pretty accessible, and you're allowed to recoup parts you sell off back into your budget. Right. You get one budget exempt set of tires too, which makes it easier than it used to be. I still I look over about 90% of the budget sheets myself to kind of see what people are doing, and by and large, they're not really going, oh, I want an XYZ car because that'll be the killer chassis. They're going, what's the cheapest thing with a VIN on Facebook that I can find, and then kind of build a race car from there.
And then what's the biggest engine I can stuff in it?
Exactly. And it's then what's the cheapest turbo LS I can piece together? Like we had my favorite way to do it. We had a guy figured out, or team figured out, I should say, that, if you go to a junkyard and buy, pieces from 10 different engines, you'll spend $1,000 or $2,000, an intake's $100, heads are $100, all that kind of stuff. But a yard will sell you a complete engine for $300 or $400 total. So they wanted to piece together an LS with, from 10 different cars, a truck intake. They wanted 799 heads, I think. They wanted a good bottom end, that kind of thing. So they actually brought all their tools into the U-Pullet. They spent a day building their engine in the junkyard, and then they carried it out and paid the per engine price to save money.
Nice.
Like stuff like that is pretty cool to see the ingenuity on.
Yeah, that's ingenuity. That's not cheating, by the way.
Yeah. And we get people ever since the first event, we had people calling foul, like, there's no way he could have painted that car. Because we never thought, when we did this, we didn't think anybody would paint a car for this kind of budget. That was so not in we never even pictured that. And of course, Mike Guido, who won at the first event, he painted his car and people were crying foul. And it's like, you didn't read the whole story. He went to the paint shop and said, what you got that no one picked up? And it was a can of paint. I believe the label had fallen off. So it was garbage. And that's what we get is the ingenuity is, and those who are in it, I can't remember the last time a competitor cried foul regarding someone else's budget. Tom, I can't remember. Like, I don't
No,
know.
I mean we have a protest system just like any of the 4-letter sanctioning bodies you're familiar with, and people are pretty darn honest. And they have to count if they use a zip tie, and they paid $10 for 500 of them. They have to pay 1/500, so there's $10 into the budget.
Oh, so they're prorating. You're prorating
the level of
zip ties.
accounting.
Okay, that's actually
Absolutely, yeah. That's
excellent to
And the
know.
thing is, the guys will show you all their bookkeeping. Like, they're also transparent. They're like, yeah, here's where I got the deal. And it's not it's not, at the end of the day, they'll work harder than you. That's the thing. It's like, well, how'd you get that? Exactly. We went to the You Pull It and built an engine from parts. They worked harder than the rest of them.
or there was I think we had a team. They entered a Miata. A set of urethane bushings for a Miata is a couple $100, or you can usually find half installed sets on Facebook and such. But that was too much. They figured out that they could get discarded bathroom partitions for $10 from some recycling yard, and those are, I believe, they're HDPE, which is kind of like Delrin or a similar kind of thermoplastic. So they bought a mill, because tools aren't counted in the budget, and they made a full set of bushings from bathroom partitions, and they hit the balance sheet at $10.
And
Stuff like that is interesting.
And that's been a common thing too, is we get people like, I've never done anything like this before. I've never built the car. I had no idea, but I felt so empowered to do this. And a huge part of this is the online community that we have. And they're like, I went on, I said, I'm a noob, help me. And next thing I knew, like, random people were coming over to my house and teaching me how to do stuff and making me part of the family. And I know Andrew Nelson, who's been one of our, I always had had our fastest drag cars. He has posted on our forum, this was a while back, but it was like, I'm going to be in City X for work. Who needs help on their challenge car? And not for money, not for anything, just, I want to help you. And that's been a huge thing. Talking to people this weekend, I'd ask everyone, why do you come back? Why do you schlep this car and hang out with us in Florida? And the number one answer, 100% answer, was the people. And they're like, these are my people,
yeah, definitely,
who get me. And that's why I'm here.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's an amazing community. Where can people find this community? I'm sure they could Google it, but because you guys have,
So I mean,
go ahead.
We actually have not just a still very, very active forum. So a forum is like a Facebook group, but better for anybody
better.
under about 30. Yeah. So we still have not only an active forum, but actually still a growing forum, grassrootsmotorsports.com. And that is where they tend to congregate. And that's where you'll find some of the best, tech advice you can find on the internet. And also, we don't have some horrible, complicated forum software. We host all your images and stuff. We've put some real time and money and effort into it over the years to make sure that all that knowledge isn't lost like so many other forums. And so far it's been working. So that's where you'll find them.
Yeah, the forum goes back, to the earliest days of the internet, so you can search it. But yeah, if you search, if you come in and ask a question, no one is going to say, do a search, noob. They'll be like, here's your answer.
Yeah.
And the person answering it might be someone who's won a couple of SCCA titles. It could be someone who spent the day in a wind tunnel from a major manufacturer working on their NASCAR program. So the knowledge base is super deep. And once you're sucked in, then you're there for life.
I
basically.
I cruise the GRM forum regularly. And I've never seen anybody need to put a flame suit on. For those people under 30, they don't know what that is either. So, but I'll also be honest. I mean, you guys have tons of do-it-yourself articles. Excuse me. One of them is how to paint your car with Rust-Oleum. So you could actually pick a plain color, and assuming the tools don't count. So a little thinner and a little Rust-Oleum, and you can probably paint your car pretty decently. Actually, you have more than one article on how to paint your car. So
yeah, we've done a couple. Carl Heidemann and his son Jack did a great one on maybe a $500 or $1,000 paint job that looks, better than anything you'd see at a Mercedes dealership. We had, I think it was Pear did a Rust-Oleum paint job for a couple $100. That again looks great. We did that involved, I think it was 12 or 15 coats or something with sanding in between. So it wasn't easy time wise. We did an article a couple years ago with a Lemons car with a $200 paint job on a Volkswagen Fox, and that was just 2 coats, spray and done, and even that looked pretty darn good. Sanding is free, and sandpaper is a tool and doesn't count. So if you're willing to put in the work, it's pretty cheap to get a good looking car.
Yeah. So I wanted to talk about the evolution of how this. I don't know. In 2001, to me, this is if my memory serves me right. So, and I'm in my 40s, so it probably doesn't. But it was, people were looking more to drive their car to the event. Or am I wrong about that?
Well, we have a lot of people come from far, which is always humbling when it's like, oh yeah, I drove down from Ohio.
Johnny Pruitt, one of our I think our longest time competitor, has been to more than anybody else. He would drive a Yugo to the event from Texas.
Yeah.
And now that's dedication.
I don't know. Yeah, honestly, I can't tell you if more people tow or not now. I think some of it's just the reality of you're entering a small car. You have a bunch of stuff to bring for a week in Florida. You might want to, and there's a good chance.
Well, and we have pretty good prizes. There's a pretty real chance you'll have to drive home with a set of Benpack Quick Jacks or a new Miller welder or welding table or a parts washer from CRC Industries or tires from Tire Rack. So it's, I always hope that somebody who drove their tiny little Miata to the event wins a big prize, because I'd love to see the ratchet strap photo of it going home. But yeah, I would say generally, the desire for a car you could drive, most challenge cars still have license plates. Most challenge cars still have at least some interior. It's not so far a competition for track cars, although we certainly get them, but it's more of a dual purpose car type thing, at least once you get below the top 10% of the field. Okay.
Yeah, maybe it was just us, and maybe we were just naive when we were younger. We were just like, we're going to build this car, throw some, antique plates on it and drive it there,
Do it. Yeah. It's not too late. Come on down in April.
Well, yeah, my schedule is ridiculously busy, and I'm sure my wife would not like another clapped out car in the yard. So, but she might be on this because she liked the whole one lap idea. So she would really like this. She's expressed interest, so I'm pretty sure I can talk her into it.
Okay. Awesome.
I will say this past year, and Tom, you can correct me if I'm wrong. This past year, I would say, was definitely among the youngest as far as field.
Yeah, it was interesting. For a few years, the average age at the event got pretty old, to be frank. And then, this new generation has come in with, they've forgotten some of the lessons of their elders, but for the most part, they're bringing in new ideas and different cars, and they're going faster. Everybody continues, evolving their builds and such. So it's been super cool to see that turnover in the event. And now, there's people who don't even know some of the history from 20 years ago there, which is really cool for the long-term success of it.
Yeah. We have Georgia Tech's been coming. This was Georgia Tech's 21st year coming in a row. But if you think about it, most of the people, or many of the people on the team, may not be 21 years old yet. So the team is actually older than its members.
Right.
The winners at the event this year were 4 high school students, seniors, not their first year coming, but they were high school girls, and they won. And so what's the average age of a senior? 17 or 18?
Somewhere in there, yeah.
They don't remember when we started this in 1999. They just knew that they wanted to win that jacket, and they did.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So let's talk about, can we talk about the results? This will be released in 2 weeks. So
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
And we've hosted them already.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Right.
totally fine.
Everyone knows. So, it's,
so
Tom, do you want to explain it?
Yeah. I mean, so so first overall, team named Material Girls Racing.
Okay.
They got an old police car at an auction a few years back. I think it was the car's third year at the event.
Yeah,
Okay.
it was a tour.
Yeah, and when I was in high school, a used police car at an auction would have been a P71 chassis Crown Vic with a 4.6 that made 225 horsepower.
Correct.
These days, the cheap police cars at auction is basically a Taurus show with the 3.5-liter EcoBoost and all-wheel drive. So they had very strong showings for 2 years with a stock body, and the thing it was beat up pretty good. I mean, there was a reason it was so cheap at the auction. It had a couple corners whacked off of it, and still had plenty of dents and bruises. So this year they came back and they said, well, we need to lose weight on the car, and we need a little better looking body. So they swapped an early Ranger on top, an 85 Ford Ranger, basically sawzalled off the Taurus, welded a Ford Ranger on top, and ended up with a better looking, lighter car that won the event. So they, to win the event, you have to have a good looking car that's competitive in the autocross and the drags. So they were, one of the top 10 autocross cars, and then they ran a 12.1 second quarter mile. And that was enough for the win.
Wow.
So
Okay.
kind of a crazy looking build, kind of a crazy path to get there, but it worked.
And they had a great story because, they had a great story and they presented it. It's like, yeah, we built this car. I think one of them, the dad of one of the women, he's been coming before. He first came with his son, and then his daughter wanted to get involved. And she talk about having a goal and a vision, and they did it. They executed it. Did she spend more money than the rest of us? No. Did she work harder and more creative, more clever? Yeah, probably.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and then we also had so second place was Rec Racing, which is Georgia Tech's team. They entered a Nissan 300ZX, but underneath they swapped out the frame for a factory 5818 chassis that they bought very, very, very cheap, some half-finished project stuck in somebody's basement with turbo K24 power. So that was, and they've been campaigning that car for a couple of years. They had teething issues. They couldn't quite get it together for the overall, but it was still a pretty cool build. Cool to see it out there.
K-swap the world. They actually need to leave that alone because I need them for my Honda Challenge car, but whatever.
And for this, what it's become for them is as people are graduating out of the program, they don't forget those behind them. So it's kind of become like this mini Formula SAE type program, but way, a little less rules and, a little easier to digest.
A little less.
So it's become this, again, 20, they've been in for 21 years.
And we've kept up with the Rec Racing alums over the years, and they do really, really well getting jobs with OEMs as engineers because some other engineering student might say I was an FSAE and built this little race car with $1 million budget, but the $2,000 challenge competitors they go into an interview and they say, well, with $2,000 and parts bin crap, we built a winning car on a deadline. And all the OEMs go, did you say parts bin? Oh my gosh, you're hired. And then they get jobs.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's super cool to see that.
They probably went to Dodge. That's where all the minivan parts got into the interior of the Viper. So
yeah, exactly. You can take the challenge for that, right. I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I think that predated the challenge, but because it was the first gen Vipers that had caravan stuff, but still.
So one other kind of highlight in the results I want to talk about is so we allow over budget cars too. Basically, how fast are these budget builds? You need a yardstick. So about half the field is cars with absolutely no budget limit. So Vipers and new Corvettes and new 911s and all that kind of stuff. And my favorite part is watching them just get absolutely destroyed by all the under budget cars.
Yes.
So like in the drag category, we had actually a very, very nice guy named Kyle Cox, Knights Automotive. He brought out his 2021 Ford Mustang GT500. And I mean, picture the stereotypical, winning drag racer, laptop plugged into it for every single foot of the staging lanes, trying to make a little tweak or two, wide tires out back, skinnies up front, the whole high budget drag car thing. And he ran a 9.155, which is not a slow quarter mile. And then Andrew Nelson, a longtime competitor, ran a 9.046 in a $2,000 Pontiac Sunbird.
Nice.
So just, it is always so cool to see the over budget cars come out, and they're having a great time, and they're getting track time, and they're having fun. But by and large, they're just getting absolutely killed by all these cheap cars. And that's what the event's all about.
So let's go back to the Georgia Tech crew, because they have a really robust Formula SAE program. How much is crossover? How much do you know?
It sounds like they're in similar, like they're all not sharing.
They share some resources, but it's basically two completely separate. Yeah. My understanding is it's two completely separate organizations that, maybe they argue over a milling machine or two here and there, that kind of thing.
Okay. But the brain trust is separate. You don't have
and the challenge team claims so the challenge team claims that they're the cool ones and the FSAE kids are the dorks. Now I'm sure the FSAE kids would say the same thing, so it's good to have a little rivalry between clubs there. But no, it's a separate team.
Yeah, that's just an interesting dichotomy, because they could be bringing in the nerd physics, because I'm with the challenge team. There's a bunch of dorks over there. And then we're the cool kids, doing whatever we want to do and hacking and sawzawing and welding and stuff. And, I just,
I mean, and the challenge team, the college challenge teams by and large, tend to tease the FSAE teams, and say, how about you go run some simulations? I got a race car to build, which, kind of funny. And I'm not saying there aren't a bunch of simulations you need to run, or that isn't a big part of professional racing, certainly. But it's really cool to see these engineers get their hands dirty and cutting and welding and banging and making cars. It's really, really cool to see that in a modern engineering program.
For sure, because I can't tell you how many guys I know that work on cars for a living that curse their engineers all the time. I'm going to guess the challenge engineers are the ones you want designing the vehicles you're working on, because they're not going to want to remove half the car to get to the one bolt to change the oil,
And we
exactly,
several alum have come back. Last year we had a bunch of Georgia Tech alumni come back, and they built some cool stuff. We had a Mercedes-Benz diesel powered Ford LTD. That was pretty cool.
And that I think either the LS was in the Ford,
yes,
or they took the diesel out of the Mercedes and put it in the Ford, and then they put an LS in the Mercedes and ran both of them at the event.
As well. They're just laying around, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's cool hearing these engineers. I mean, I'm with they're working in the automotive field. Like, the big thing is, as college students, they are turning this into careers, which is pretty amazing. I mean, they have support from real companies like with Cat and Milwaukee, and real companies you've heard of, and they are turning our humble little event and building this $2,000 car into a career in the automotive industry, which is
the annual budget for a college challenge team is a fraction of what it, considering everything. I know the $2,000 for the car, but then there's trucks and trailers and there's workspace and all that.
Right.
From what I've learned talking to the colleges, right. So the annual budget for a competitive college challenge team is $20,000 or $30,000 instead of whatever an FSAE team costs, which I'm assuming is more than that.
Yeah.
I think it's very easy to have 6 or 7 zeros in that number.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. They do all sorts of crazy stuff.
They do. And I mean, when Georgia Tech first showed up, it was a A2 Volkswagen Golf with bolt-ons, the typical, like what we were all building. And it was more than a few people. It wasn't quite the army that shows up today. I bet you it was 10 people at least, though, which is big for a challenge team. And I'm like, oh, that was nice. We had a challenge, a school team come, and they've been coming. We've had other school teams this past several years. We've had a team from Cedarville come, Cedarville University, and we had the guy from is it Kennesaw State, who
that's my favorite story.
Yeah.
So this guy, I think it was a team effort, but Ethan Foster is the one who told me the story, and basically he was going to go to Georgia Tech and join rec racing, join the challenge team, which so apparently it's a recruiting method too for the schools. Let's just say that him and Georgia Tech seem to have a difference of opinion and who should be admitted. So instead, he went to Kennesaw State and started his own damn challenge team. And they were at the event with a sweet Ford Festiva kind of built into a Shogun clone with a Camry V6 in the back. So, and he had a whole team with him there, and they were ready to be competitive at the event and to make it a long-term thing. It was a real club and everything. So that was super cool to see.
Oh, wow. There's always a story, right? And I guess they need that story.
Yeah.
So,
and that goes back to the whole thing about the story is sometimes you might look at the car and go, the fit and finish isn't great, or whatever. A lot of us always, we tend to pick apart other people's stuff. And it's like, I'll tell you what, when I was in college, I wasn't building race cars. Like, I don't know how many people, yes, some people were, but that was not an option for me.
We were doing intake, header, exhaust, lighting valve covers on fire because we thought it would be the faster way to strip paint off of it. These dudes from built their own box flares. They put the engine in the back of a car when it used to be in the front. Like, right. That's
pretty high level stuff.
Oh yeah, for sure. That's not what I was doing. Trust me.
No, I put an SCK sticker on my car. I thought that was enough.
Right.
But yeah, so that's been probably the biggest part for me is seeing this keep going. As Tom said, the second generation of entrant is awesome. Like, we had the first one, like, oh, someone's kid is building a car, and now it's several are.
Now it's a lot of, oh, it was nice of him to bring his dad this year. That's cool.
Yeah, exactly. So
they brought the retired guy back.
Yeah, exactly.
And the dads will just kind of. You watch them, they're smiling, they're kind of just off in the shadows letting their kids do it. And, it's not like Little League Baseball where the parents are getting a little too involved. It's kind of the opposite. I mean, maybe the parent drove the truck down, but these are college and high school kids doing all the heavy lifting. Which is
we should talk about the parking lot build tradition too. So obviously, building a race car is a pretty high barrier to entry, even if you don't need much money, or even if you're going to run a mostly stock car. So there's a kind of a dedicated, loosely assembled team of parking lot build volunteers or victims, however you think about it, every year, and they'll bring some sort of a car or most of a car to the parking lot of the host hotel every year. They'll work on it for a day before the event, and then they'll compete in the event and see how they do. And, if you told me you have to build a parking lot car, I'd put wheels and coilovers on a Miata, right? I mean, something simple, something with a pretty high chance of success. They decided over the years they engine swapped and supercharged an AW11 MR2 that had been sitting for 20 years. They LS swapped an RX-7 this year. They turned a Chevy, a Camaro into a go-kart with a swap or something.
Yeah.
All sorts of wild stuff. And shout out to our host hotel for, over 3 or 4 different managers over the years. They've let this tradition continue. So it's super, super cool to see all these people that, maybe they don't have the resources or the time or the money or whatever to build their own car. They can still show up at the event and have a fantastic weekend wrenching and building and driving and compete in the event anyway.
Wait.
Pretty rarely.
Hold on. You said they're showing up to do it in the weekend?
Like the Friday.
Oh no, Yeah, they show up the Friday to be fair, the Thursday night before the event and build the car in the hotel parking lot.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's amazing.
And anybody's welcome. I mean, if literally every year, 10 or 15 people just show up and say, "Hey, where's the parking lot build? I want to work." And I brought my toolbox, or I brought this set of wheels we can use, or I have some LS intakes or that kind of thing. And then they figure it out and make a running car.
And it's not even like they're looking for seat time. It's just like, I want to be part of it. What do you need me to do? And they just do it. And these are people who don't live near each other. They know each other through the community. This is their one year to see each other. And they just attack it. And yes, our hotel is super accommodating to have a welder going out back or whatever other equipment. We park in the back parking lot. And a lot of these, usually these cars are pretty, they run and it happens and they get it done. And again, it's part of the story. And we tell people, if you don't, for whatever reason, you don't think you can build a car, you don't want to build a car, show up and somebody will put a wrench in your hand and say, "Hey, tighten that or loosen that."
Yeah, that's an amazing. It's like a big family reunion of a bunch of knuckleheads that like to build stuff.
It is, and we should thank
exactly. Yeah,
Jeremy Randolph is one who's usually involved in those parking lot builds, and they'll plan it out on the forum. Like, all right, we're bringing X. All right, I got the part that goes for it, and yes, what they show up like, it'll be like Thursday night. I mean, we start running Saturday morning. It's not like they're starting a week early, or it's a day.
And even like it's like total strangers that are nowhere near the event, on the forum. It'll be like this year they needed they were LS swapping the RX-7 and they needed somebody to code out the security thing in the PCM, the GM PCM. And some dude was just like, "Hey, I have extra HP tuners licenses or whatever. Mail it to me and I'll mail it back to the hotel for you and it'll be good to go." They dealt with that like the week of the event. So it's super cool to see these total strangers helping each other out to move the car.
That's wild. I did want to get back to the team aspect. So is anyone bringing like a ringer national autocross driver? And then maybe like import tuner.
We do. Yes. Okay. So we hire pro drivers every year. Basically, teams. We've all said that this is a building competition, not a driving competition.
Right.
So we have pro drivers, and we keep them in a little pen and put them in bright yellow shirts. And basically, if at any point you want help, either coaching or for them to put down a time for you or anything like that, grab one, throw them in your car, try not to injure them with your janky build, and go see what happens.
You do make sure all their tetanus shots are up to date, right?
And
absolutely. And we even I should have sent you the briefing email that goes out to all the drivers that basically says, watch out for rough edges and make sure you're vaccinated. It's super cool to see, the competitors, they'll say stuff like, "Oh my gosh, I came here for fun and to run my car. I didn't realize I was going to get like some pro level instruction out of the deal too." It's super cool to see them learn stuff on that end of things too.
Yeah, because all the drivers we have, they're all SCC and national champions. At least some have many champions. Danny Shields has been with us since the first time we did this. He's a multi-time national champion. Recently learned he's a 40-time Florida state champion as well. And at first we thought it'd be a little bit like a goof. Like if you remember, David Letterman used to have Marv Albert in a case as like an emergency guest. And if you needed a guest, you'd break it open.
Right.
And that's what this was the vision. Like if you need a driver, we'll have Danny there and you can pull him out. And people loved it. And today we have a small group, a group of dudes who are drivers, and they're all
they're drivers and they're national champions, but they're also complete nerds too. Like Mike Casino, again, national champion. He drove down from Charlotte because he loves the challenge and the idea of the event and the build so much. So he, and we pay them a little bit to make sure they can get a hotel room, but trust me, we do not pay them enough to make it worth a 10-hour drive if they didn't truly love the event.
And we did have a team many years ago. They brought Danny Pop, who is a multi-time national champion, brought them with his team, and he wound up driving a ton of other cars. Like it was, once he saw how the event worked, it's like, oh, I'll drive anything. And so you can bring your own driver if you want, but if not, we have several there.
Okay. Yeah, I was just wondering if if the teams had gotten into that, but I was sure from looking over the builds over the years that they had.
Yeah.
My next question is, did cash for clunkers or COVID ever really threaten the ability to keep a $2,000 budget?
So yes and no. So when the event started, a 20 to 30-year-old car was 70s and 80s. So malaise era into, kind of getting back towards decent cars, but not really anything affordable. So a $2,000 car when the event started was kind of a terrible car. It probably was the easiest in 06, 07, 08, kind of that when a cheap car was something from the late 80s, early 90s, a lot of wishbone Hondas, that kind of thing. Cash for clunkers definitely made a dent, but remember, to get the cash for clunkers credit, the original or the fuel economy of the car being crushed had to be way lower than the car you were buying. I forget the finer details, but basically, a lot more Mustangs and SUVs got crushed than Miatas and Civics and such. So that didn't have as bad of an effect as you'd think. And then COVID has just been kind of chaos everywhere to everything. But at the $2,000 level, I mean, yes, COVID has made 5-year-old Miatas more expensive. But at the level these teams seem to be playing at, and as aggressive as they are looking for deals and negotiating, it hasn't been that bad of an impact.
Okay, because I was for sure cash for clunkers was destroying you guys. It wrecked the used car market for us.
Like, I was talking to one of our regulars, actually it was Jeremy. He had a very presentable E36 BMW coupe, like a 323i. I said, how do you get this for so cheap? He said, oh, on the Facebook ad, the guy had the cover on it. He like would pick up a cover and take a small junky photo. So it's just a matter of being the one who says, hey, there's promise there, and finding the better deal.
That's how I bought my house. They had the worst photos of my house, and it was a gem, and it was on the market forever.
Yeah.
So.
And this car looks good in real life.
Yeah, and again, these teams will look, basically, most of the teams, it seems, will look at every single thing posted on the classified ads in their area. I mean, every single thing, just in hopes that somebody spells Camaro wrong or puts up a Miata too cheap or that sort of thing. And then remember, you can recoup money too. So, I mean, if you buy a car that's too expensive and it has a decent interior, there you go, sell that and you're back under budget.
Back to our forum, we do get a lot of guys who are like, hey, I don't need this, but someone here should buy this. Here's the Facebook ad or Craigslist or whatever. So we do get a lot of like people helping each other out to find these good deals.
Yeah.
And I think it's important, to do this kind of quality control myself. So, I'm constantly dragging home horrible, cheap cars. At least that's how I justify it to myself. I don't have a problem. Please don't write me letters. But as long as you're really, really vigilant and you're able to get to a cheap car before anybody else does, which our competitors seem to be able to do, there are still deals out there every day.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I'm going to debunk in the current tech era the misspelling thing. Even eBay has the AI capability that they will, if you type in Camaro the wrong way, it's going to pull in all of the search. Like, if you type it in correctly, it's going to come back with everything. I know we used to do a lot of that on Craigslist when it was still active. So
I find like my best, man, I'm giving away my secrets, but it's probably good for me. Like look in the household goods section and that kind of thing, and just watch for people posting cars in the wrong part of the marketplace. That's kind of the new misspelling, if you will.
Okay.
People who just absolutely don't know how to use the technology. It's that or people who don't know what they're looking at too. I mean, a Miata put up as a 626 or that kind of thing is somewhat common too, at least around here.
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing. My question to you is travel to go get the car in the budget? Because I find deals and they're like hundreds and hundreds of miles away.
So time to talk about the GRM Relay or the GRM Express, depending on what forum thread they're talking about it in.
Okay.
So cost to ship up your car. So if you pay to have your car shipped, that goes in the budget because of course it does. You're writing a check for somebody else's time and effort. But if you can get a friend to pick up the car for you, it's free. So the challenge, the GRM forum members and the challengers in particular have kind of this whole GRM Express set up all across the country. So I've seen cars moved from Florida to New York and Massachusetts or out to California and back, engines, wheels, parts, all kinds of stuff. Both by teams trying to get, to save as much budget as possible. And also just because the community is so strong and they're so trusting of each other that they're driving hours out of their way and hauling cars up and down 95 to help each other out.
That's amazing.
And I've used it too. I sold just a Nissan, a daily driver to a forum member up in the Washington, D.C. area. And he GRM expressed it up to D.C. for free.
Oh,
from Florida.
Oh, that's wild. Yeah. In the D.C. area, we don't get anything cheap. You have to, if you find it, it's on the side of the road and they don't know what the internet is. And I mean, I live in the country, so I might get a chance at that, but otherwise the deals are North Carolina and south or Pennsylvania and north. And I don't like northern cars. So
yeah, that makes sense.
But that's awesome. First off, is there anything else we need to cover for the GRM $2,000 challenge that comes to mind for you guys?
I think the only other thing I wanted to mention was, it's presented by Tire Rack, who's been a longtime supporter of the event. And, for a big company that sponsors a lot of really, really high budget events all over the country, it's really cool to see that they actually care about this end of the market and about the $2,000 challenge. So wanted to thank them for their support. But now we're excited to bring the event back next year, and we'll be in Gainesville, April 2025.
Awesome. I know you had CRC, Miller, and a couple other companies that were helping out too. I'm assuming that's where those welders and stuff were coming from. So at least for this year.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So CRC Industries, Miller, Benpack, all longtime supporters of the event. And I always love it when a big company that, buys Super Bowl ads and that kind of thing cares about this side of the market and this budget. It tells me a lot about the people that work there, and it's really cool to see.
I mean, they still have their skid pad and they still do crazy stuff. So, I think they're in it. Yeah. I think they're in it deep, and I appreciate them for everything. If I'm buying stuff for my street car, it's usually coming from Tire Rack. It's getting put on at a local tire place. So, they do great work, and they're always there to support. What are some of the local, or not local? What are some of the new events that are coming up this year? I know there's the Wear Your Helmet to Work. I never win, but I try. And then when is the Ultimate Track Car Challenge? Also, that's a long staple.
Yeah. So Wear Your Helmet to Work Day. I want to make sure I shout that one out. It's presented by HMS Motorsport. It's May 3rd. And basically, it is a completely, totally okay excuse to wear your helmet to work. Just show the event to your boss, and I'm sure you'll be fine. But no, we wear our helmets to work that Friday, just to tell our coworkers what we do, to explain why our car has all those weird stickers on it all the time, just to kind of spread awareness of motorsports and have some fun. Everybody posts their photos and on social media and tags us, sends them in to us of them wearing their helmet to work, including doctors and surgery. If you post your helmet with a photo of you doing surgery with your helmet on, and then email me to take it down, it wastes all of our time, and you're going to get sued. So please stop.
Yeah, don't do that.
But no, don't do that, doctors. Like maybe when you're scrubbing in for surgery, you could put it on for a photo. But no, so wear your helmet to work on May 3rd. Send us a photo. Our favorite photo wins a brand new helmet from HMS Motorsport. So little incentive for you, but it's a ton of fun, and it's a ton of fun to get the rest of your office or your factory or your hospital on board too, and get a group photo of everybody wearing their helmets. So,
Yeah.
and then
I lost a couple years ago where I was in a huge Teams meeting with my helmet on, and in a huge government agency. It didn't go over well, I guess. I mean, my boss already knew. My boss was like, "You're an idiot, but go for it. Who cares?" And then, it was last year. Last year, I drug my helmet into the woods with me. We were doing 100 miles of the Appalachian Trail to make sure I could get my helmet picture on the day that it was required.
Oh, geez.
And I still lost.
Well, thank you for the dedication. And it'll pay. Sadly, you're helping to spread awareness for it, so you're going to have more competition this year. Thanks for participating.
That's fine. I know the year I lost, Melissa won. She's a competitor in how to challenge out of the Southeast. So I think she was feeding her chickens and won. So
okay, that's right. Yeah. And then, so we do the Tire Rack Ultimate Track Car Challenge is October 26th. That's in partnership with the SCCA Time Trial Nationals at NCM. And that is basically absolutely no rules, who can set the fastest time, period. So, and if you ask any details or anything, there are no rules. Show up and run a lap. Any fendered car is eligible. So it's been kind of cool to see kind of what the other end of our world looks like if you're not on a $2,000 budget, how fast you can go, and it's really cool to see what we can learn. Every single year I go to that event, and every single year I come back with something I learned that I can apply to my Miata. So it's really cool to see the fast cars out there for the Ultimate Track Car Challenge.
GRM Challenge guys, I throw the gauntlet. Go out there and put a smackdown on the expensive cars again.
And we've had people do both. We've had people who've done challenge cars, and then they've done UTCC cars.
Yeah, and it's Ed Mall, I think, was one of the first with he had a Fox body Mustang with an LS swap, and he basically rebodied it. He's a composites engineer, and he basically rebodied it in fiberglass to lighten it up a ton. Super cool stuff on that car. Like, he couldn't afford wider wheels, so he widened his wheels himself in his garage with a welder. Stuff like that. He did both, and then Daniel Cummings with a Subaru 360 that he turned into an LMP car, kind of a 3/4 scale LMP car. Right. He did both too, and was actually out at the Ultimate Track Car Challenge this past year.
Okay,
and David Brown's done them with a Evo, like a home built Lancer Evo. He's done both, so it is cool. And creativity. The creativity doesn't matter. I mean, give a budget, give parameters, and these people will find a way to be creative and build something really cool.
Yeah, I guaranteed. So any last alibis, parting shots for the GRM $2,000 challenge?
It's, I am one of two 100%ers still remaining.
Okay.
So at some point, JG and I are going to face off Highlander style. No, it's.
I've been to every one. I was just in a stroller for one of them.
Okay. It's humbling. It's very humbling to see what people make. And, we're in a world, we've always been in a world where it's buy, get the latest, get the shiniest. And to see a large group of people who are willing, putting hard work first, to come to an event that we host that sort of started halfway as a goof has been very humbling. And again, the creativity makes you realize that I could do this because I have the same tools that they do. They're not doing it because they have a huge CNC factory in their backyard. They're doing it. A lot of them are doing it in like a 1 or 2 car garage.
Awesome.
Yeah. And there's rules, details, photos, link to the forum, all that at 2000challenge.com.
And everyone should go to grassrootsmotorsports.com and become at least a digital member so you can get access to all the articles.
Absolutely. Love to have you.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't realize that we're not a giant corporate conglomerate. We're a small family-owned company that everybody here is just a car dork who doesn't want to get a real job. So anytime you can support us and help us continue our quest and not have to go get real jobs, we really appreciate it. And that's what lets us keep doing this.
Absolutely. Are there still, if you have a GRM sticker on your car, you still have a chance of getting in the magazine, or at least on the website now?
You sure do.
Yeah. So don't forget that, guys.
You sure do.
Still a dream
that's what I'll
of
be
mine.
working on. You got to send me a photo, high res.
Oh, that's easy. I buy them for every track event. So
cool. We appreciate it.
well, thank you guys for coming on and sharing. It's been a great time.
Cool. Thank you very much for having us.
Yeah, thanks for the invite.
Until next time, keep working on yourself, keep working on the car, and let's get faster.